Benjamin Netanyahu went to the White House looking for a lifeline. With an election looming in Israel, his coalition trailing in the polls, and tensions flaring across the Middle East, he needed a masterstroke. He wanted Donald Trump's full endorsement. He wanted green lights for expanded strikes on Iran and Hezbollah. He wanted the Gaza peace plan sidelined, and he wanted the US-Saudi nuclear deal completely restructured. Instead, he walked out with almost nothing. This wasn't just an awkward diplomatic meeting. It was a massive geopolitical shift that could rewrite the future of the Middle East, tip the upcoming Israeli elections, and reshape Donald Trump's foreign policy legacy. Today, we're breaking down what really happened behind closed doors at the White House, why Trump is suddenly pushing back against escalation, what this means for Israel, Iran, Lebanon, and Gaza. Smash that like button and subscribe for deep dive geopolitical breakdowns, and let's get straight into it. So, the first part of this topic is about the election trap and the poll numbers. To understand why this meeting was so critical, you have to look at the calendar. Israeli elections are just around the corner in October, and right now Netanyahu is facing one of the most toughest political fights of his career. For weeks, polling data has consistently shown that his ruling coalition is stuck in the high 40s to low 50s in the total number of seats. In Israel's 120-seat parliament, you need at least 61 seats to form a government. Netanyahu is nowhere near that. Meanwhile, the opposition bloc is polling the high 50s. While their path to power is complicated, it's far more realistic than Netanyahu's current trajectory. Netanyahu needed a classical political power move, a glowing photo op in the Oval Office, a public endorsement from Trump, and a shared platform showing that only he has the leverage to dictate American policy in the Middle East. But Trump withheld the explicit election endorsement Netanyahu desperately wanted. Why? Because the White House is reading the same political tea leaves. American foreign policy is shifting away from unconditional backing of regional escalation, and Trump isn't willing to bankroll every fight that Netanyahu wants to pick. The biggest item on Netanyahu's White House agenda was Iran. According to reports, Netanyahu pushed the US to back an expanded direct military campaign against Iran. We're just not talking about minor strikes. We're talking about full-scale targeting of Iranian nuclear sites, missile facilities, and key critical and energy infrastructure. Netanyahu's strategy was simple: neutralize the Iranian nuclear threat once and for all with American firepower. But Donald Trump isn't buying in. Trump is signaling a major pivot away from foreign entanglement and massive escalation. Instead of war, he is leaning towards a temporary diplomatic fix aimed at keeping the Strait of Hormuz open, even if that means accepting a level of effective Iranian operational control over the waterway for now. And it didn't end there. Netanyahu ran into the exact same brick wall when it came to Lebanon. Along the northern border, the fragile US-Israel-Lebanon agreement is hanging by a thread. Netanyahu wanted Trump's permission for a three-part escalation: capture and neutralize Hezbollah's key headquarters and Ali Tahrir Ridge. Next, intensify airstrikes against Hezbollah's expanded drone manufacturing facilities. And third, resume targeted assassinations of senior Hezbollah leaders outside of southern Lebanon. But Trump balked. Why? Because the US wants to keep the conflict contained strictly to southern Lebanon. The White House is putting its chips on Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and the Lebanese armed forces, giving them time to displace and disarm Hezbollah. If the Lebanese army succeeds, Israel will be legally obligated to withdraw from its occupied zones in the south. Netanyahu knows that an Israeli withdrawal before the October elections would be political suicide at home. So he wanted to fight, but the US said no. And then there is the Gaza quagmire. Right after the White House meeting, the Board of Peace released a 15-point roadmap designed to finally complete the Gaza peace plan. Hamas actually wanted and signed off on this roadmap, although with significant caveats. The plan tackles the hardest question of the conflict: how to disarm Palestinian militant groups, who runs civilian governance, who provides long-term security and reconstruction. In a minor concession, Netanyahu's cabinet did approve the entry of the Gaza Peace Council's National Committee and an international stabilization force into Gaza after months of negotiations and foot-dragging. But Israel is still not signed off on the roadmap itself. So why the deadlock? It comes to sequencing. Israel insists that militant disarmament by Hamas must happen before any withdrawal or major political concessions. On the other hand, Hamas demands an immediate, complete Israeli withdrawal before handing over weapons. So who moves first? Neither side trusts the other. With just weeks left before the Israelis go to the polls, signing this agreement would trigger a revolt inside Netanyahu's hardline, hard-right coalition. But rejecting it entirely risks destroying relations with the US and key regional partners. So while localized Israeli strikes continue, the broader ceasefire will likely hold, but stuck in a tense, frozen deadlock. And then there is the Saudi nuclear wildcard. At this entire meeting, Netanyahu walked away with only one real piece of leverage, and it comes from a surprising place: Saudi Arabia. Recently, the US announced a civilian landmark nuclear deal with the Saudis, but almost immediately, Trump publicly threw in a massive condition. The deal would be contingent on Riyadh normalizing relations with Israel. The Saudis immediately pushed back, arguing that no such condition exists in the actual contract. But Trump's public framing gave Netanyahu the exact opening he needed. Netanyahu is now leveraging domestic criticism within the US Congress to demand two things: guarantee that no Saudi nuclear technology moves forward without full diplomatic normalization with Israel, and number two, completely roll back any provision allowing Iranian enrichment on Saudi soil. Trump wants to sell civilian nuclear technology and lock in Riyadh as a major US ally. He isn't going to give Netanyahu everything he wants, and full normalization in 2026 remains highly unlikely. But for Netanyahu, this issue is a rare win, a leverage point he can exploit both at home and in the US before the election. So let's tie all this together. Netanyahu flew to the US looking for a masterstroke to save his campaign. He wanted war backing, political endorsements, and a green light to reset the regional board. Instead, he's returning to Israel exposed. His political coalition is still trailing in the polls ahead of October. His strategic goals on Iran and Hezbollah are blocked by a cautious Trump, and the Gaza roadmap is locked in a high-stakes standoff. The big question now is, can Netanyahu manufacture a political turnaround before October, or are we looking at the end of an era in Israeli politics? Furthermore, Trump is decidedly moving away from large conflicts and more so away from the Middle East and focusing more on bigger threats, namely China. Note that the US is just not focused on the Middle East. It has to focus on Europe, the Indo-Pacific, and increasingly belligerent China. So the big question now is, can Netanyahu manufacture a political turnaround before October? Or is he going to go back to the US, or is he going to strike unilaterally in Lebanon or even Iran? What do you think? Will Netanyahu find a way to rebuild his coalition majority before October, or will the opposition take power? And do you think this is a new path in US-Israeli politics? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.